Our next panel is Mr. Nick Laragakis, President and Chief Executive Officer of the American Hellenic Institute, Ms. Anastasia Staton, Chair and Board Member of Halo Trust USA, and Mr. Van Krikorian, Co-Chair of the Armenian Assembly of America. I thank you for joining us today. We're going to have your whole testimony in the record, and if you would care to, we'd appreciate if you'd summarize your testimony. Thank you.
Okay. Chairman Lowy, Ranking Member Rogers, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for allowing me to present today. My name is Anastasia Staton, and I'm here representing Halo Trust USA. As the world's largest humanitarian demining organization, Halo leads the effort to protect lives and restore livelihoods of those affected by conflict. We remove and destroy landmines, cluster bombs, and IEDs, and help secure weapons that could fall into terrorist groups' hands. For more than 20 years now, Halo has been a partner of the State Department's Conventional Weapons Destructions Program and its sole implementer of the USAID's demining program in Nagorno-Karabakh.
Greece, a dependable NATO ally, is an ideal strategic partner for the United States. With its centuries-enduring presence, its close cultural, political, and economic ties to the broader region and to neighboring Western-oriented frontline countries that share democratic principles, such as Israel and Cyprus, Greece is strategically situated for the projection of U.S. interest by virtue of its geography and by being home to the most important U.S. military facility in the Mediterranean Sea. Going on 45 years, Turkey illegally occupies the Republic of Cyprus, a member of the European Union and a nation with which the U.S. has a strategic partnership. AHI recommends appropriations language that any assistance provided to Cyprus by the subcommittee should be foremost to ensure that United Nations Keeping Force in Cyprus can fully implement its mandate. Turkey is also a threat in energy security and U.S. interests and has exercised gunboat diplomacy. We welcome the U.S.'s continued support for Cyprus's right to develop its natural resources, especially as ExxonMobil announced last month the largest find thus far in Cypriot waters. Further, Turkey's $2.5 billion purchase of S-400 missiles from Russia concerns our NATO partners and is contrary to U.S. interests. Until resolved, AHI strongly recommends similar appropriations language regarding a report to the Congress on Turkey for the F-35. For all these reasons, including the suppression of religious freedom, for the Ecumenical Patriarchate, the world's oldest Christian church, we continue to oppose aid for Turkey, including most favored nation trade benefits. AHI welcomes the administration's intention to terminate preferential trade status under the Generalized System of Preferences program.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lowy, members of the panel. And I will be brief. I'll only make 3 points because I appreciate we are pressed for time. And perhaps even counterintuitively, I'm going to start by paying my respects to the Halo Trust and Anastasia rather than jumping directly into my own agenda. I think the work they do is critical. We support their request fully. I'm honored to be on the same panel. Last year, the Halo Trust lost 3 members doing demining activities near Armenia. 2 members were injured, and our hearts go out to all of them. We respect the work that they do. Our organization has raised funds privately to help in those efforts, and in that regard, I think this committee could do a world of good if it removed restrictions on U.S. aid to them, removing mines based on artificial Soviet borders. Our really deepest respect and sympathy. Second, I want to pick up on Congresswoman Frankel's excellent question to the 6th panel. Of course, the American Bar Association representative made a great point. IFAS made a great point about democracy backsliding and what do we do about corruption. It's a question that those of us who work in this area struggle with. It's what the U.S. wants to see. The idea is that the more democracy there's, the better, but then between that general concept and what actually happens, there's usually a big gap. How can the U.S. specifically help? First of all, reward people who have made progress toward democracy. And second of all, when it comes to corruption, I think the United States has to look at whether examples are made of corrupt individuals. In the United States, how how did, to go back, Elliot Ness and them do it? They targeted high-profile people who were corrupt, and they went after them. The United States still uses that philosophy successfully. The fact that we fund statutes or writing statutes and laws and things when judges themselves can be corrupt is completely counterproductive. In our experience, going after people, even if it's years later, to say you cannot get away with this, there will be consequences, the rule of law will apply, is the best approach. And I would expect that if countries were analyzed based on that, which it doesn't always have to be punitive, it can also be forms of a reconciliation type of process where people acknowledge what they've taken and give it back, I think might be a good metric for this committee and the United States to start using. Apropos of that, I think the United States looking itself, and I was glad to see, and we were glad to see that the Department of Justice is going to start more actively enforcing the Foreign Agent Registration Act. I would be remiss if I did not note the last organization scheduled to testify today has been clearly identified as one that benefits from corrupt funds from a foreign government and has not reported under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, nor has it reported under Congress's lobbying laws. The United States needs to look at its own rules. Finally, with respect to our specific request, yes, I think Congresswoman Frank picked up. Armenia had a remarkable year. Economists objectively named it the country of the year because of the democratic changes, a peaceful change in government, extremely clean elections, rule of law, you name it, across the board. And Time magazine named the current leader of Armenia crusader for democracy. The kudos, even, if you look at the State Department from the U.S. Trade Representative and others, I'm going to make it under the time, don't worry. Were remarkable, and that's why we're asking for something substantially more. We're asking for $100 million in economic and democracy aid to Armenia. We're asking for $10 million in FMF and IMET. We're asking for another $20 million because Armenia has resettled refugees from Syria and the Middle East and given them safe haven, and we're expecting more, frankly. We don't know what's going to happen in the Middle East, frankly, and we're concerned about that. And finally, we're asking for $25 million to Nagorno-Karabakh for the benefit of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is one of the places where the Halo Trust works, but has also been a model of democracy in the region. How did I do?
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you for your understanding.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lowy, Ranking Member Rogers, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to represent the Armenian National Committee of America to share our community's fiscal year 2020 foreign assistance priorities. As you know, we deeply value the U.S.-Armenia friendship, and were particularly honored last year to be joined by Armenia's new president at an event the ANCA hosted on Capitol Hill, marking a century of U.S.-Armenia relations. Today, with the generous help of our Congress, Armenia is a strong friend of the United States, having sent troops to support our operations in Kosovo and Afghanistan, and working to address a range of regional challenges. Nagorno-Karabakh, with the support of direct U.S. assistance, stands today as a constructive partner in the search for a democratic and lasting peace in the Caucasus. It is in the spirit of friendship and shared democratic values that we come to you with our priorities for the coming fiscal year. First, an allocation of at least $6 million in assistance for Nagorno-Karabakh. We want to thank the subcommittee for its longstanding support for this program dating back to FY98. The Halo Trust, with the support of this subcommittee, is close to declaring Karabakh mine-free, but needs continued funds to complete its life-saving work. In addition to demining, we urge this panel to support the operations of Karabakh-based rehabilitation centers, which serve children, adults, and seniors with physical and mental disabilities. Besides meeting vital needs, U.S. aid to Karabakh also represents a confidence-building measure toward peace and a real investment in freedom. Second, an appropriation of at least $30 million in economic assistance and $10 million in military assistance for Armenia. In the aftermath of Armenia's constitutional political transition and recent free and fair elections, we want to share our special thanks with the subcommittee for its longstanding leadership in fostering the bilateral friendship of our two nations, and to seek your continued support for strengthening Armenia's independence. Armenia, a Christian nation deeply rooted in Western democratic values, has emerged, despite dual Turkish and Azerbaijani blockades, as an important regional ally and international partner for the United States on a broad array of complex challenges. As we continue to work with the Trump administration to implement programs that promote U.S.-Armenia bilateral economic relations, such as a double tax treaty, we ask you to help Armenia make the transition from aid to trade by appropriating at least $30 million in economic assistance. Third, an appropriation of $20 million to help Armenia provide transition support to refugees from Syria who found safe haven in Armenia. Armenia has welcomed nearly 25,000 refugees from Syria with only modest levels of U.S. and international relief and resettlement assistance. Armenia has provided full citizenship rights to Armenian Syrian refugees and has sought to compassionately integrate all arriving families into Armenian society, but faces serious financial constraints in meeting the needs of these refugees. Special areas in need of support in terms of short-term housing, job training, and social and economic integration. Our prepared remarks also address the need to strengthen Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act, the imperative of cutting U.S. military aid to an overarmed and belligerent Baku, and the benefits of lowering the barriers to U.S. contacts and communication with the people and government of Karabakh. In the fall of 2017, 3 members of Congress traveled to Karabakh to see firsthand the life-saving impact of the funds appropriated by Congress. We would welcome additional trips such as this and encourage members of this panel to consider visiting Karabakh. Thank you for your leadership on these important issues.